Yes.
If I was a financial advisor and I was starting out, I would learn everything I could about nonprofits and specifically private foundations. That happens to be one of my areas of expertise. When I was at Ernst and Young, all I did for 7 years was nonprofit tax work,
Oh,
and so
wow.
I learned everything there was to know about, uh, you know, different types of nonprofits, public charities, private foundations, political associations, churches, schools. I learned everything about what the IRS requires, what the different states require in terms of compliance. I saw pretty much every big issue that you would see with a nonprofit. I lived it, like you said. And what I've learned is that when you're dealing with private foundations, which again is a subset of the overall nonprofit world, private foundations have significant amounts of capital,
Yep.
and they have to invest it because they have a what's called a required. It's basically a giving requirement. They have to give away 5% of their net assets every year, and so in order to give away 5% of their assets every year, they have to bring in enough investment income that's going to beat that 5% rate. And so, if I was a financial advisor, I would try to learn everything I could about nonprofits and then go target those big private foundations that have 10, 15, $100 million of assets because their business model is really simple. They only usually have a few people that are on their board. They have one employed staff or two, but they've got this massive endowment of assets that has to be invested. And if you can get in with one of those, you'll see that all the foundation managers talk to each other.
Mm.
So if you get in with a private foundation that has any substantial assets, you're going to get in with more and more similar clients, and that would be a niche that I would definitely pursue.
Yeah,
If I was
and
in
a
your
lot of the
industry.
nonprofits need a lot of help running cash and things
Yep.
that only an advisor can do, especially with the interest rates where they are right now. You can really run cash in a smart way for these nonprofits and actually make them returns. And I've talked to churches and foundation, and they've got, like I said, seven figures many times in banks at singular banks.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, FDIC, like you guys aren't even covered here. So then what are they going to do? Spread it out to five different banks? It gets crazy, and they need somebody in their life that can help them execute that properly. Um,
Yeah, and you'll see that the nice part of working with nonprofits is that you've got a board of directors who has also shares a fiduciary duty.
mm,
And so they're willing to hire help because first it's not coming out of their pocket necessarily, right? They're managing essentially public funds.
right.
And so they're not afraid to spend money the way maybe a business owner would when it's coming out of their bottom line. But the other part is because they have that fiduciary duty to make sure that the organization's assets are used ethically, they almost have to. I would argue they always have to surround themselves with advisors, whether that's accountants, lawyers, or financial advisors. They should not be trying to make those decisions on their own. If they do, I would argue, that they potentially have violated that fiduciary duty, unless they happen to be an expert in that industry. A nonprofit that prepares its own tax return is probably doing it wrong. A
mm.
nonprofit that chooses its own investments is probably not doing the best that they could do with that money.
I would just say lastly, I mean, this is really fun conversation, just talking tax and legal, and really uniquely, and not on purpose at all. The first conversation with an attorney on the show happened to also be the first conversation with a CPA, which is really cool. Um, and Arizona is really unique. I love that idea. I hope things, you know, nationally start to move in that direction, especially if the rest of, Western culture, if you will, Western capitalism is moved in that direction, then hopefully we start to see that more in the States as well.
Yeah.
I think it helps. It helps the relationship, helps us to be able to do a better job for our clients. It's this just been really fun to dive into this part, this process